Welcome back to the Asia Political Review. Today's topic is, again, artificial intelligence, and specifically, it's the politics of AI in Thailand. And what I'm arguing here is that the politics is actually killing the implementation of AI in the country. So the question here is not whether or not AI is necessary, but whether or not the state itself is spending revenue wisely, whether it's creating transparency, and whether or not this is actually creating value for the public. And look, countries across the world, Singapore, Vietnam, they are turning to AI because of the promise of better spending, forecasting, better administration, improved fraud detection, and of course, more efficient public spending. And Thailand is no different. The Artificial Intelligence Committee under the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, its plan, this national AI program, aims to boost public competitiveness, improve public services, and you see this here in these strategies, and improve overall quality of life through this AI adoption. And at the heart of the strategy are these 9 or 10 centers of excellence, AI centers of excellence. So they're spread across different agencies. Education, creative industry, tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, language, public sector computing, and product testing. And there's another one that is dedicated to safety and security in AI, and that has received a kind of preliminary approval. But look, this is not an experiment. This shows you that Thailand is serious about this. I mean, AI governance is real, and it sees AI as a central part of its economic future. And I'm quoting here this report by UNESCO and TDRI from 2025. If you look at the fine print, though, this is where we kind of run into trouble. It shows that there are 0.59 data centers per million people, with a bulk of those centered in Bangkok. And that means that the vast majority of Thailand's population has no access or very limited access to compute resources. However, in 2024 alone, BOI applications for inbound data centers and cloud service investments reached 240,000 million baht. It's an impossible number. But data quality remains inconsistent across the ministries. That's really, really bad. And a lot of them have outdated, unlabeled, and unstandardized data sets and insufficient what they call metadata tagging. In fact, in the ministries, there are no frameworks for establishing system testing, auditing, benchmarking, or certification. So what happens here is Thailand lacks a kind of quality infrastructure, which is a system that is tailored to AI, which impairs the ability to attest the model safety, the fairness, and the explainability. One of the things that always keeps coming up is Thailand's AI passport. And this is a thing that's not suitable for line ministries, but it is supposed to be for the public sector. And it's an AI access program designed to give up to 5 million people access to premium AI tools like ChatGPT Plus, Gemini Advanced, and Claude Pro, alongside this training program called Learn to Earn. The thing, it's controversial, though, because this 1.62 billion baht procurement process is arguably corrupt. It's been rushed, or it's been tailored to match these very, very well-connected firms. And it raises the question about the terms of reference, about the independence of the bidding process. And Lord knows how many times the procurement process for a lot of these government projects have been managed in Thailand. So the question is this as legal, as transparent, and as useful in closing the government's AI gap? And it seems to me that it was not, because they had to switch from unlimited access to a certain extent for these 5 million people to a pay-per-use model to reduce the risk of budget overload. So the thing is here, if a program only buys you temporary access to commercial tools, what you're really doing is subsidizing consumption rather than building capacity. And that's really, I think, where the political problem really begins. And look, don't get me wrong. This is as bad as it seems. But when you think about Thailand's history of digital surveillance, of spying, we see this with the Israeli Pegasus spyware program, designed to sort of spy on the mobile devices of online dissidents. This digital control, the surveillance, and questions about online freedom can't be ignored. This exposes Thailand's real contentious relationship with this data and data transparency. And the recent criticism is that, look, the procurement ecosystem is becoming way too concentrated. And look, when the same actors keep showing up in the procurement process, that means that competition is weakened, scrutiny becomes harder, and public spending can kind of drift towards a quid pro quo networked advantage rather than a broad public benefit where the public gets the most for its money. One thing that I wanted to show here is the level of corruption that has been going on. So, for example, the Anti-Corruption Commission of Thailand, it is estimated that kickbacks, for example, and under the table payments linked to procurement were around 200 to 300 billion baht a year. That assumes that 20% or 30% of investment or procurement budgets across all different types of state agencies, right, are in trouble. So in fiscal 2026, as much as 131 billion baht were allocated, for example, in the Department of Highways, for planning, construction, maintaining the highway network all across the country. But when it came to legislative oversight, and there was this committee, this Standing Committee on Commerce, Industry, and Banking, it said that, look, the Department of Highways, or the DOH, had an inducement rate or bribe offers of up to 82% of the number of contacts. That is extraordinary. So look, the issue here is this. Thailand needs to invest in digital capabilities if it wants to be competitive. And the region, like Thailand, is not alone. Governments keep investing in AI, and it should be promoting a kind of modernization agenda. In fact, Microsoft, which inked deals with Enyutin and Saretta before him years ago, they say that, look, Thailand's AI market is moving beyond experimentation, and they think that there could be real business growth as 87% of the population, including people in manufacturing, in agriculture, education, and healthcare, have yet to adopt AI in their quality of life and work, which means the market is there. The problem is most of those people are living outside of Bangkok. How does Thailand move AI capacity, AI compute power, individual use beyond centralized Bangkok? So look, it's not whether or not AI should be judged whether it sounds ambitious. It should be judged solely on whether or not it actually creates public value. And for the most part, this does not seem like public value. So the answer is, look, the country is willing to spend billions of baht to buy the appearance of progress. That's troublesome. So the issue is not whether or not Thailand should spend on AI. I'm not a real big fan of AI in my classroom, but I think that it's worthy of adopting in other sectors of the economy. And by well, it should. But is that public spending guided by evidence, by transparency, by accountability, and long-term public value? I don't think so. I think it's guided by corruption, by a flawed procurement process, and simply the politics of appearing modern. All right, that's it for now. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment box. So I'll see you next time.